received a notification, right, that it's recording now?
Yep.
Okay, and just to confirm, you consented to this session being recorded, and we discussed the storage, the secure storage, the use, and the time frame for deletion of this recording? Yep. Okay, perfect. So yes, how has everything been? I remember last time we talked, you had an interview actually right after our session. How was that?
It went really well.
Yeah.
I was offered, it's kind of a confusing process. So
Okay.
the initial offer did happen. And so now I have to get like a Canadian security clearance because it's like working with the military. So I'm like getting the same clearance that my boyfriend has.
Yeah.
And after that and like references, then they like kind of make the final call. But as long as those are all good, then I have the job. And they also ended up messaging me, asking if I'd be willing, because I told you, oh, they just told me I could only work 2 shifts a week.
Yeah.
But then they emailed and were like, oh, the other nurse we hired actually said some weeks she can only work 1 day. So would you do 2 weeks or 2 days 1 week and 4 the next and like alternate? And I was like, yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I'd actually be making more, the wage is significantly higher. So I'd be making more money doing way less hours than I'm doing right now.
Oh, I see.
Which I think would be very good for me because I'm struggling. And I'm starting to kind of like dissociate, which tends to happen to me in the winter. Like, I think because I'm already depressed and then the seasonal depression just like hits me like a ton of bricks. We just had our first snowfall and I just live in the dark basically because I drive to work in the dark and I get home in the dark. I don't even get home in the dark. I leave in the dark. It's already dark. And it's just a lot. And I think working that many hours with the like 40-minute plus commute each way, plus I never leave on time, like I end up with like 15, 16-hour days for like 4 days in a row. And then I'll have like 1 or 2 days off and then it's again. And it's just too much.
Are you thinking of leaving your current position or are you going to
Yeah, I think I'm
I see.
asked to be casual.
Okay.
And still pick up occasionally. I think I'd pick up on days that the ER isn't open.
Okay.
I had a really terrible day at work on Saturday. The doctor that was there is not our normal doctor, so she's a substitute, and she was very, very rude all day to me and the other nurse and to patients. And like the other nurse, Steve, I work with him all the time. He's so knowledgeable and he's been a nurse for a long time. So he has a lot of confidence in his abilities. And like when the doctors are mean to him, like he's used to it. Whereas like I already feel like I'm in a fragile state. And then this doctor was like first treating me like an assistant and then just being straight up rude, like to the point where I ended up having a panic attack, which I don't ever have at work. I normally can wait till I get to my car. Like I can delay panic. But it was bad. I ended up having, she was just really, really mean. And then I like calmed myself down and I went back and I was like, there was like a critical patient. And I was like, what can I do to help? And she's like, there's so much that needs to be done. Where I clearly had been crying.
Yeah.
She knew I'd been crying because it started as crying and then she looked at the other nurse and was like, why is she crying? But I was just trying to calm back down so I could like get back into it.
Yeah.
And when I came back, I was like, just tell me a task. I can do a task and we can work through it. But she just yelled at me again and then told me to get out of the ER.
Oh my goodness.
So then I went right back into panic mode, which was really upsetting. I'd called my aunt while I was having a panic attack. I tried to call Matt, but he didn't answer. So I called my aunt, which is helpful. Has a soothing demeanor. But then I was texting my coworkers because I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I obviously still have to do my job. Like, as nurses, you can't legally leave, as well as like I wouldn't do that to my patients. we were clearly running ourselves like completely ragged, and she was having us do a lot of things that is the physician's job,
Yeah.
especially in rural hospitals. Like there's a lot of things that aren't the same as traditional hospitals. Like we
Mhm.
have to do assessments in the waiting room, and like there's certain things that the doctors do instead because we're busy. There's 2 nurses and we
Mhm.
had 10 patients on the ward plus at least 3 in emergency all the time, which is a lot. So like
Yeah.
in Ontario, which is criticized for having terrible patient ratios, you
Mhm.
have like 1 to 5, 1 to 6 is like the normal ratio,
Yeah.
not emergent patients. So
Wow.
like just crazy. And I don't have emergency training. Like I'm a new grad. And like
Mhm.
I can take criticism.
Yeah.
Like that's not what it was. And
She,
it wasn't just like she was blunt either. Like, because when I was texting my coworkers, which they were all very helpful, like the one was like, do, because I was like, it's really hurting my confidence. Like it's hard as a new
yeah.
grad confidence in the first place. And she was like, this doctor's already beating you down. Like, don't do it to yourself too. Like,
Yeah.
um, and she was very supportive, and she came in, I think 45 minutes early. But then I was texting with someone else who lives just like a few doors down, and she's autistic as well.
Mhm.
We've bonded about it a lot. And she was like, I'll come over and see what's happening. Like, I'll just say I'm looking for some documents or whatever.
Yeah.
And she came over, and then she saw me and she talked to me, and she called the manager and got permission to stay.
Oh,
So
wow.
she stayed and like just basically dealt with the doctor and was like,
Mhm.
okay, what are the tasks that we need to do? Like, what has to be done? And so we got through all of it, thankfully. And then amidst the chaos, a patient escaped.
Oh no. It honestly sounds like that Saturday. It
It
was
was
an
a day from
incredibly,
hell. Yeah,
yeah,
it
tough
was really
day.
awful. And I was just so upset. And like, I felt very supported at the end of the day. Like, once the doctor left, like,
Mhm.
um, all of the nurses, like the nurses that came on, and then also Martha and Steve, who were there with me already, were all very like, she doesn't know what she's talking about. Like, it was not
Mhm.
okay at all for her to speak to you like that. And like, they were just very validating and supportive. Like,
Mhm.
even though like her voice is still in my head, like, it's going to take a while for me to get over it. But
Yeah.
it's still nice to know that these nurses, who I consider great nurses, are like so upset about me being treated like this.
Yeah.
And both Martha and Steve said something to the doctor. And then Steve's an agency nurse, but I work with him
Mhm.
almost all the time. I work with him more than anybody else. I swear
Oh.
he picks up to full time. In Glenborough, he drives from Winnipeg, which is 2 hours, which is crazy.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow. It's a long
I don't know
drive.
why he likes Glenborough, but maybe he likes me. He works with me all the
Yeah.
time. He was a doctor in the Philippines, actually.
Oh, nice.
Oh, he's so smart. He's
Yeah.
very good. He's very good.
Yeah.
And he was supposed to work at one of our like almost like a sister hospital. Like we have the same
Mhm.
management. So we have the same manager for like 3 of them because we're rural.
Mhm.
Um, and so the nurse that had come on like just a little bit early was talking to Steve, and then they asked if I wanted to go work at the other hospital
Yeah.
yesterday because that doctor was there yesterday too.
Mhm.
And like, so I was like, yeah, I mean, it's a new hospital. I haven't worked there, but I would 8,000% rather be there than here. I mean, the doctor basically said too that she won't work with me.
So, from this entire experience, it sounds like she was targeting specifically you and bullying
Yeah,
you the entire time she was working.
yeah.
Oh
And
my
that's because,
goodness.
like, Martha was like, she's very straightforward. And she's like, it
Yeah.
seems like she was kind of panicking. And Steve was like, yeah. but that's not all it was. He's like, she was
Mhm.
rude to both of us all day, but especially Olivia.
Oh my goodness.
And so like that also felt very validating for him
Mhm.
to say that. And like, because sometimes I'm like, am I just being sensitive? Because I can be sensitive.
Mhm.
But he was like, no, that was awful. Like, and then I felt a little guilty yesterday because I actually had a really good day.
Okay.
I liked that hospital better, but it was a boring day, which I was not complaining about. I was like,
Yeah.
so on board for a boring day.
Yeah.
But Steve had another crazy day yesterday, so I felt guilty, but I'd messaged him the night before and he hadn't
Yeah.
answered, but he messaged back and he was like, I just hope you're doing better. Like it was a crazy day, but that's all right. It's over. And
Mhm.
yeah, so
Oh
but
my
that
goodness.
and then Saturday, like I ended up having to stay late to write an incident report because that patient went missing.
Oh, I
Who
see.
came back. When the patient went missing, like I looked at Martha and I was like, I could not go tell this doctor that I lost a patient. The patients are allowed to leave. We're not a locked unit.
Mhm.
So they're allowed to, be like, hey, I'm going to go for a walk. Or they're allowed to just go sit out on the ramp. But this patient has some dementia and it was dark out and snowing.
Yeah.
Luckily, she had dressed really warm before she went out there.
Okay.
And one of like, since it's a small town, like everybody knows who actually lives there. So
Okay.
she crossed past someone's house and he said he went out and offered her a ride and she said that she was fine. And then she crossed back in front of his house like 15 minutes later. And he's like, I was a little more insistent that she get in my car.
Mhm.
This is where she needs to be, right? I was like, yeah, thank you so much. And it was right before I was about to call the police. So I was like, oh, thank God.
I could hear the emotional weight of what you experienced just by your voice.
It was
Um,
really, really hard.
yeah, you were in a high pressure environment faced with a physician who treated you like shit, and
Yeah,
your team too, in a way that felt dehumanizing.
that's,
And then you were having a panic attack in the
yeah.
midst of all of this. It must
Yeah.
have been very unsettling,
It,
especially if that was your first, sorry, if that was your first time experiencing that at work.
It was. And I mean,
Yeah.
like in bigger hospitals, I've dealt with rude doctors and like
Yeah.
doctors who think nurses are worth nothing, which is this doctor definitely felt like nurses were like same as the gum on the bottom of her shoe. Like,
Mhm.
um, sh- in big hospitals, you interact with them normally just on the phone and they're gone. And then you're just like dreading having to call them again. But you can do your job and work around the day and not have to see them. But like in the small rural hospitals, like she's right there.
Yeah.
Like there's no separation at all.
Mhm.
Like she's set up in the nurses station too. We offered her like another area, but
Yeah.
she'd set up in the nurses station and then close the door so that she could dictate. But that's where like our fax machine is, which we're from the olden age, so we fax every like 5 minutes.
Mhm.
And then she like just blocked everything off. Gonna be in there.
What you just described, it's a lot to process for anyone.
Yeah.
Balancing the demands of being, a new grad nurse and managing that emotionally intense environment while encountering behavior from a doctor that felt disrespectful and damaging to your
Yeah.
confidence. It's it's natural to feel fragile after an
Yeah.
experience like this, especially when you're already doing so much. Um, Also, it's not about the criticism you have received from that doctor. It's about the way it was delivered and
Yeah.
how it made
That's
you
what I said
feel.
too. Like, even if I was making a mistake, like
Yeah.
you just correct it, move on, and then you can talk about it after.
Mhm.
Like, I welcome constructive feedback.
Yeah.
I don't want to do the wrong thing. But even when I was telling them like exactly what happened, they were like, I don't think you did the wrong thing. Like that's what I would have done.
Mhm.
So it was just like, and it's very common in our world for doctors to look down on nurses, and it's becoming better with the younger doctors
Mhm.
mostly. But it's not perfect.
Yeah.
And like the doctor that works at our hospital all the time is just so lovely. And like I think if it was the same day but with her, it would have been fine. Like it would have been hard and chaos, but like it would have been fine.
Yeah.
Because that's then I guess the doctor said something about me, like to one of the nurses about, well, if she can't handle working in the emergency room or whatever. And Martha said, she looked at her and said, that is not what this is about. And you know it.
Mhm.
That's, we will talk about it outside of this room. So it was in front of the patient.
Yeah.
So I felt lucky that they had my back too. So I think I have a hard time standing up for myself in general.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. I find it difficult when doctors act like they're my boss,
Mhm.
because they're not, right? Like we're all equal.
Yeah.
We just do different jobs.
Yeah. It's a collaboration. There's
I
no
like I can't do my job without them, but they can't do their job without me either. Like there's
Yeah.
lots of things that nurses can do that doctors can't or desperately prefer not to. Like it's things you'll see like, well, I only want a doctor to put in my IV. And you're like, this doctor hasn't put an IV in since med school 60 years ago. Like, are you sure? Like, can nurses do it multiple times every day?
Yeah.
But it's just, we're a team, and I really get frustrated when we don't act like it,
Yeah.
because we all have different knowledge and different views and different everything. And it's about coming together to do what's best for the patient. And like, I was upset for more than just her treating me bad by
Mhm.
that point too. Like we had a patient who came, she was Indigenous from like a group home type situation.
Okay.
And she'd come in the day before. The doctor had advised her to stay, but she really didn't want to stay. And she's like, "Okay, just come back tomorrow. Like we're still open. We'll
Mhm.
reassess." And her social worker, whoever came with her, and she said to me like, "Hey, if we're not going to admit her for as much as we can we just like stay in the waiting room?"
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like she didn't need any physical exams, and we only had one bed. So,
Mhm.
like, and like if it's going to help save her anxiety, like she has a lot of anxiety in terms of like medical trauma and all of this
Mhm.
stuff, which is so common with Indigenous people.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, I absolutely can accommodate that. Like that to me is nothing. Like as long as we can, sure. And I said this to the doctor and she flipped out. She was like, if she can't be seen by a doctor, then she should not be in this hospital and she needs to just leave and stop wasting our time and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, this woman needs help.
Mhm.
She's having an issue, and part of your job as a doctor is to reasonably accommodate. And
Yeah.
it's making absolutely no difference to your treatment where she's sitting. Like, oh, she was just terrible. And then she had me go in when she did her assessment because she made me put her in a room.
Yeah.
Didn't touch her. It was just for a conversation. No one else was in the waiting room. We could have closed the door.
Hmm.
Like, it's not like the waiting room was packed full of people and there was no privacy. Like, that was not the case at all.
Yeah.
And she like just said things really fast and then was like, I have to go, and left. And so then I had to answer all the questions because the patient and the worker had no idea what the doctor had just said. And I was like, this is not cool.
And you know what? You were explaining that you felt a lot of emotions, heightened emotions for sure. And you were saying that you felt upset about this entire experience just because everybody it it was chaos at the end of the
Yes.
day. But I want to take a moment to sit with that feeling you were saying of being upset. Not to dwell on it, but to acknowledge that it's okay to feel hurt by what happened.
Yeah.
And while it's understandable that this physician's behavior hurt your confidence, it's also important to separate their actions from your abilities.
Yeah.
What if we shifted the perspective a little bit, just by a little bit? So, what does this experience say about them and their approach versus what it said about you as a nurse?
I think if I think it shows more on her that she can't work collaboratively.
Okay.
And I think even from the patient's view, they were a lot more comfortable with me than they were with her, even though she was acting like I was worth nothing and knew nothing. But I was the one that they were wanting to ask questions and stuff to. And I don't like, other than this experience, like I haven't had any reason to doubt like my nursing ability. 'Cause, like,
Okay.
and I'm aware that I don't know everything, but I think that's part of what makes me a good nurse
Yeah.
is because I acknowledge that and I actually find the real answers rather than just pretending I know everything.
Hmm.
Like I just recently, two of the nurses who work nights, so I guess they hadn't heard how little little of a time that I've been practicing. Because I was
Yeah.
like, I think I was complaining about something else, end of the day venting. And I was like, I've only been nursing since August 20th. And they were like, what? They were like, I would never have guessed that. I'm like, yeah, I just graduated in June. They're like,
Mhm.
that's not computing. Like, I never would have assumed that it's been that little time. Like, I thought it had been at least a couple years. They
Yeah.
were like you carry yourself very well and like you look out for the patients really well. And so
Yeah.
that helped. I was trying to think of that last night. Like other nurses, I think are a better assessment of my nursing performance rather than a physician who doesn't know what we do or
Yeah.
how hard we work.
What do you think that this situation says about the kind of nurse, the kind of person and teammate that you are?
I think I'm a team player. And I think that shows in the fact that I get upset when other people aren't team players. Um,
Mm.
I think that I'm a very compassionate nurse. And so that can upset me too. Like I was upset when the doctor didn't want to accommodate that woman
Yeah.
because I really felt for her and I think it's important to look at patients like they're people.
Hmm. Of
Um,
course.
and so I think even though it like was the doctor and I was getting upset and I was being hard on myself for being upset, I think I had good reason to be upset. And I think it was a reflection actually that I'm a good nurse and that
Yeah.
I care because I cared about how it was affecting the patients, honestly, more than anything. Like she was hurting my confidence. When I
Mhm.
was having that panic attack, I'm like, there is a patient that needs me. And like I felt frustrated that I felt like she was impeding my ability to go and help the patient
Yeah.
and the other patients. We had too many patients. I
Yeah.
also had my first infant patient,
Oh.
which luckily he wasn't that sick. He just has a little like sinus respiratory infection, but he was only 6 weeks old.
Oh my goodness.
And that was another one that she was like, she wouldn't assess. Our rooms were all full, all of our beds.
Oh
We
wow.
just had the baby in the waiting room and she wouldn't assess the baby in the waiting room.
Yeah.
And like we can bring everything in there. And she's
Okay.
being so ridiculous. And I'm like, you're
Hmm.
just gonna leave this baby who needs to be looked at because you're mad that our hospital doesn't have more beds.
Hmm. You know what? It sounds like you hold a deep commitment to your patients, which is admirable. And it speaks to your professionalism and your dedication as a nurse. You know, you
Yeah,
put their needs, sorry, above your own
yeah,
emotions. And that's a part of what makes you so effective in your role.
Yeah.
Even if that doctor's behavior made it super incredibly harder
Yeah.
for the whole team. But yeah, I
I
hear how
was,
much you prioritize that patient care. And even when you're
yeah.
dealing with difficult situations, you know how to get through it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was just so grateful to the other nurses and especially
Mhm.
Steve for willing to switch with me, knowing that he was going to come into a harder day than the
Yeah.
one that he had signed on for. Because like I would have had to call in. Like I knew that I could not work another day with that doctor.
Mhm.
Um, and it worked out a lot better that I got back in the saddle the next day, but in a better environment.
Mhm.
Like, and it was actually really great at that hospital yesterday. Something I loved when I was a PSW was
Mhm.
like pleasantly confused, really old men.
Oh.
I just love them. I don't know what it is. Like I have such a soft spot for them,
Yeah.
especially when they can be a little bit grumpy. I don't know. I really love them. And they had three of them there. And I just like got to spend the day like fixing their collars and like little
Yeah.
things. One told me a story for like an hour about
Mhm.
this his secret of getting to 95, and it was a good day, and I think
Yeah.
it was helpful, and it was nice to be able to provide the care that I like to, because we're so busy all the time that a lot of the time I barely see my patients, and that bothers me. So it
Yeah.
was, they only had four patients and their ER was closed, and there was three nurses because there was an orientating nurse too.
Yeah.
So there was, got to spend a lot of time with patients and like helping do things that make them happy. So
Yeah. That's nice how you have a teammate that's willing to kind of help you navigate through difficult times. Again, switching and going to the new
yeah,
environment just to give you a breather, to be honest.
yeah,
Um, it gave you a lot of much needed relief just
yeah.
after dealing with that. I'd be overwhelmed too. I wouldn't want to see your face the next day, to be honest.
It paled so much in comparison to the anxiety of going back to
Yeah.
Glenbrook
Oh,
that I,
yes. Yeah.
I'll deal with it, because I had to go in an hour early too for like orientation, and I'm like,
I see.
it's fine, it's fine, because I didn't get much sleep because it was a snowstorm, so I took
Oh,
forever to get home. So I'd
yeah.
already stayed late, and then I took, my drive was like twice as long because I couldn't see anything on the road.
Yeah.
And so it was just like, just upset. But I got to work and then it was a good day and I was happy. And I have to email my manager just
Mhm.
to kind of talk about what happened. My coworker had me write down like kind of key things that happened,
Yeah.
because I was like, I can't do it tonight. Like, I'm so tired and I have to get up early tomorrow. And she's like, write things down so that you don't forget. And I have my little list here, and I'm going to use ChatGPT to help me email my manager.
It's good that you're reaching out to your manager because everyone needs to debrief from that horrible day.
Yeah.
Um, and you were saying when you went to that new place, it was what you were saying, boring, but taking a step back into that calmer environment, it's such a great way to reset.
Yeah.
Um, it's natural to miss some of the engagement and the challenging things of that busier setting, but it sounds like you valued that chance to recover, especially
Yeah.
being in
I
that.
wasn't upset about it at all. Like,
Mhm.
and normally I'm like, oh my God, I'm bored. Like, I want to do more. But, and all the nurses there were like, oh my God, time is going so slow. There's nothing to do. I'm like, you know what? Time went by so slow yesterday
Mhm.
and I was so busy.
Yeah, yeah,
So I much prefer this. Like, because I can be pleasantly busy. I can have a busy but good day.
yeah.
But that was a busy and bad day. And so I'm good to have a quiet and good day.
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah.
not,
Oh, yeah, no, it showed that you recognize what you need in that
Yeah,
moment.
they found me. Staffing found me at that hospital. They're just like that meme about like, have I reached you yet about your car's extended warranty? Like
Oh,
that is
yes, yeah. Out of like
like,
random places, they just pop
yes,
up.
honestly. But they called me at that hospital and they're like, do you want to work in Glenborough tomorrow? And I was like, no. Like that doctor's gone, but I was like, I need a day off because I work again tomorrow.
Oh,
So, like if I'd worked yesterday, that'd be 5 days in a row, including tomorrow, and that's just too much.
yeah.
But I work
And
tomorrow and then I have Wednesday off because Matt has a procedure and he needs
okay.
me to drive him.
Oh, I see.
So I got that day off, which is nice. And then I work Thursday, but then I'm off till the Wednesday or something. So
Oh, okay. That's
yeah.
good to hear. Some rest
Finally,
days.
I have like a time in my rotation, which is a 6 week rotation. And the like last 2 weeks, I only have
Yeah.
like 2 shifts,
Mhm.
which is nice, but I do also would kind of just like it evenly spread out because the
Yeah.
time when it's all put together is hard.
Yeah. So, what do you think that this entire experience taught you about balancing staying challenged and feeling supported?
I really value feeling supported.
Hmm.
I've said that for a long time that to me it's not even the work, it's the coworkers. Like if I have good coworkers, I can have bad days be good. Like
Yeah.
coworkers are always like the main thing for me. Like even when I was working medicine in Kingston, like that
Yeah.
was busy nonstop all the time. But if you even just had a coworker with that you could like laugh with in the break room or like you'd always have their back, like it was just makes the day so much better. And it was the same when I worked as a PSW, like
Yeah.
who you were working with made all the difference. And I really value that um over the type of work, whether it's hard or easy or whatnot.
Hmm.
Um, it's just very, very nice.
Yeah. It sounds like feeling supported by your team. It's something you value deeply. Um, it makes a huge difference in how you experience the workday, especially during tough days. Um, yeah, that brings a sense of trust and connection that outweighs even the challenges
Yeah,
of the job itself.
yeah,
Um, it shows how much collaboration and that shared understanding
yeah.
can shape your well-being while working. Um, so when you think about times you felt most supported at work, what specific actions or behaviors from your teammates made the biggest difference for you?
Um, I'd say like when they do things to help, like they can see that I'm stressed out and they do things to help. So like my philosophy is always if I'm doing nothing and the other nurse is struggling, then I should not be doing nothing,
Mm,
right?
yeah,
Like I will help the other nurse, like because
yeah,
we get patient assignments.
yeah.
That's just how it should be. So it helps me a lot when they'll notice that and they'll be like, here, I know you're running crazy, like I'll go toilet your patient for you, or like, don't worry, like you keep doing that and I can finish passing out your meds or whatnot. So I find that very supportive because
Mhm.
I don't find anybody's doing that in a like, oh my God, you can't get your job done by yourself. Like
Oh,
it's
yeah.
a, hey, we're a team, we're going to take care of the patients. And like, that's what matters. And then also just like, I think the like validating words helps me a
Oh,
lot.
yeah.
Like, when like, even at the end of the day, if they're like, thank you for a good shift, or like, that makes me feel good. Um, and it was interesting when I was at the hospital yesterday. Um, they do weird 8 hour shifts and some 12. I don't know. I was on a 12, but there was like a shift change
Oh,
at
okay.
3 between two nurses. And the nurse came on, and I recognized him immediately, but I always recognize everybody.
Mhm.
But he recognized me, and he goes, "Aren't you from Glenborough?" And I was like, "Yes." But you remembered who I was, and I'd only orientated him for an hour. Like he'd come the hour early for me to orientate him for night shift. And that was it. But he remembered who I was. And I was like, that's so funny because I feel like people never remember who I am. And to like be able to place me in a different place, right? Like if he'd recognized me in Glenborough, I would have been like, yeah, that makes sense. But in a different hospital,
Yeah.
I don't know. That made me feel nice. I was like, well, I hope it's at least a good memorable and not a, oh my gosh, this
Mhm.
girl's again. But like that, it makes me feel nice when people are like, oh, good, I'm working with you today. Or like, I'll be like, oh yeah, I'm working Monday. They're like, I'm working too Monday, like high five. And I'm like, oh, good. Like, it matters to me that people like working with me.
Yeah.
And I also value other people being calm. So I
Okay.
think that was another thing with this doctor was like she was stressed out and that always rubs off on me. So like it was the same at every job I've ever had, like as a PSW, as a nurse, like if I'm working with someone who is calm, like
Mhm.
my natural demeanor, even though I have an anxiety disorder, I just have a calm vibe
Yeah.
at war in my head. But then when other people around me are like frazzled or whatever, like it rubs off on me for sure. I very much feed off of that. I wonder if it's just because like as a kid, like I had to be so in tune to what my mom's emotions were. And like her emotions directly impacted mine because if she was having a bad day, like that meant I was gonna have a bad day
Oh.
because she took it out on me. So
Yeah.
I just like I wonder if that's still like just something that got so ingrained to me as a kid is like being so
Yeah.
hyper aware of everyone's emotional state and then feeling like, well, that's going to happen to me. And then because I'm thinking that it does happen to me.
Yeah, it sounds like maintaining a calm environment and being someone your team enjoys working with, it's really meaningful for you.
Yeah.
You recognize how your demeanor impacts others and
Yeah.
likewise, and it's clear that you value creating a positive atmosphere fear in times of stressful situations.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Because
yeah.
like calm within the storm, right? Like
Yeah.
we just, as long as we're solid working together and we're calm and we can get through it, like the chaos is manageable because that
Mhm.
nursing is chaos. Like it just intrinsically is chaos. You have very few non-chaotic days, but
Yeah.
being able to be calm within the chaos
Mhm.
is fun. It really helps me at the end of the day. Like even the nurse who came on that I hadn't messaged because he's another agency nurse and I've worked with him a
Okay.
couple times, and he immediately when he came on was like, what happened here? What did they do to you? And I wasn't even crying at that point. Like I was fine. I was like, just a minute. There's like too many ears here. So the doctor was, she left and he's like, okay, like, come
Mhm.
on. And then like I was talking with all of them about what happened and all of them were just like, it's not cool at
Yeah.
all. And like,
Yeah.
do let this tear you down.
Yeah.
And so it was really nice to have that supportive environment.
Mhm.
And even the shift, I'd only worked 2 shifts with John, which was the one that had come on. And the first one was my second day as a nurse.
Oh.
And I worked a day shift with him a couple weeks ago,
Yeah.
which we had a boring day, but I was being kind of chaotic because I decided to empty out all the cupboards and like
Okay.
go through everything. So he's just there and I'm like, there's not enough chaos going out, so I have to add some to the mix. But
Yeah.
even like for him to be like, you're good at what you do was very affirming.
Mhm.
Because
So what, sorry.
yeah, no, go ahead.
Yeah. So what do you think it means to you when people like working with you? How does that connect to how you see yourself as a team member, a person?
I've always wanted people to like working with me.
Mhm.
Like always. Even as a kid in like group work, I was very like people pleasing. And so like there are people that liked to work with me because I'd make sure everything got done, or like I'd do all the work, and like
Mm.
that still was always more important to me, even though it was frustrating. Like I think I have a very deep rooted need to be liked. But it is nice when people like me despite me not being perfect. Like Steve easily could have been really irritated with
Mhm.
me and like upset that I kind of failed in the time of need.
Mhm.
He wasn't at all, and I think that was really helpful. And he still is like, oh, when are we working together next? And like him reaching out to me by text was also just very like, okay, so like me having a part in this shift being terrible, he still wants to work with me. And like I think that other people's opinion of me does help me build value of myself, because I don't have a great self view
Okay.
ever. And so I think when other people like me, I'm like, okay, well, I can't be that bad. Like
Mhm.
maybe I'm lying to myself all the time.
So do you think there might be a difference between wanting to be liked and needing to be liked?
It depends in the situation. So I have a like it used to be I needed to be liked everywhere.
Mhm.
It's not as much anymore. So in work, I'd say it's still closer to a need than a want. But like outside of work, it's not as much. Like I've gotten a lot better at not letting people's opinions affect me.
Okay.
Not that I don't value people's like, but
Yeah.
like I think especially when I don't like them either. Like if I'm like, well, like why? It like their opinion doesn't matter to me. Like
Yeah.
um, it's not someone who I'd take advice from. So why does their opinion on like my being really matter? But
Mm.
I struggle with it. I've always struggled with it. Just I
Okay.
think I'm a very big people pleaser.
I see.
Yeah.
And so one of the things we can look at is how your need to be liked might be linked to cognitive distortion. So
Yeah.
for example, do you ever find yourself thinking in a all or nothing term? Like
Oh
if they
yeah.
don't like me, I'm not worthy, or I need to
All,
do everything for them to be accepted
all the time.
all the time. Yeah, so black and white thinking, and
I have a lot of black and white thinking.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. I was told
Hmm.
it was autism.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Okay.
I don't deal well in grays.
Don't I see.
I'm much nicer to everybody else than I am to myself,
Huh.
which I think a lot of people are like, because I grant people so much grace that I then will turn around and not grant myself.
Mhm.
And like with my friends, for example, like I have a friend who's in a similar situation where she's just finding nursing to be too much, and like I'm being really hard on myself about it. But then I was like, what it like how much you can do does not define how good you are as a nurse. Like it doesn't like, and I can say all of that to her, but then turn around and I believe it when I say it to her.
Yeah.
But then when I say it to myself, I'm like, well, it doesn't apply to you. Like,
Oh man.
so I really do believe I'm like my worst enemy. Like
Yeah.
I'm just so chronically stuck in my internal monologue of self-doubt and hatred.
I see. But
Yeah.
I can see that you're noticing how you tend to extend so much grace and understanding to others, but when it comes to yourself, that same kindness isn't always
Yeah.
there, clear that you're a compassionate person who really wants to support those around you. Again, you're in the nursing field. That's what you do
Yeah.
for a living. But it sounds like you're also feeling the weight of not offering yourself that same level of compassion.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I struggle with it for sure.
yeah, yeah. It's understandable that with everything on your plate, it might feel easier to be kind to others than to yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, this entire pattern, it can lead to a lot of self-criticism, and it can create some inner tension, especially when you don't feel you're giving yourself the same grace.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I found this quote that I saw that really resonated with me. I just wanted to share it with
Yeah, of
you
course.
because it felt very, I often don't feel like I compare myself a lot to other people in terms of like, I don't have it that bad. Like, stop being, anyways, this, the quote was, the reason you feel strong is because strength is your default. And like that really resonated with me because I feel like I have constantly, since being a kid, always been fighting something because I honestly feel weak, but I do have strength. I'm just so used to being strong that I don't notice it.
Ah, that's a great quote, to be honest. I actually
So
haven't heard of that.
I
But
really, yeah, that was the first time I'd seen that one, and I
yeah.
really liked that. Um, yeah, I've been seeing a lot of like eldest daughter TikToks and stuff like that,
Oh, I
and
see.
like,
Yeah.
yeah. Um,
Hmm.
but that one really resonated with me. And then I also like, I'm trying to not go back into my depressive slump. So I'm thinking again about that like darkness quote all the time. Like, don't let the
Yes.
darkness fool you.
Yeah, I
Like
I
my mom
was
right now.
yeah, that song was on repeat, to be honest, when
Yeah.
you told it to me the other time.
Yeah.
But this quote, it's powerful to recognize that strength is often a default, um, something you may not have even fully recognized within yourself because you're
Yeah.
constantly in that fight mode.
Yeah.
And I can imagine how it might feel difficult to truly acknowledge the strength that you carry, especially if it always has been tied to being in survival mode or fighting
Yeah.
through all of the challenges.
Yeah.
Um,
I saw another one that
mhm.
was like, whether you're drowning in 20 feet or 2 feet, you're still drowning. Like 20 feet of water, 2 feet of water.
Yeah.
Like, which I feel like is another thing. Like, ever since I was growing up, I'd always say like things are relative, and I had to be like that because my friends' problems to me always didn't feel like problems.
Mhm.
But I was able from a young age to be like, that doesn't mean it's not a problem for them. Like
Yeah.
their day could be a great day for me, but it's still their worst day. Like I remember starting to think that when I was like 9.
Oh.
I have a friend that I'm thinking of, and like I can remember when I first started being like, we're still friends, but
Yeah.
I don't know if we would be if I hadn't been able to think like that.
Okay.
You just had a very nice life growing up, which she
Yeah.
also had her problems, but and like I've seen it that way, but I've still never like reflected on saying that as a as it giving myself grace. Like
Yeah.
my worst day could be somebody's best day, but it's still my worst day. And like I don't think of that, but I'll think about it about other people. So I think seeing that drowning quote too was
Yeah.
also spoke to me. I've never been someone that really had quotes speak to me, but like lately I've been finding them and it's just really like, I don't know, helping me reframe things, I guess, because it's
Yeah.
all things I've thought about, but having them phrased in a way like that, I don't know. But
Yeah.
I liked that one too because it's true. Like
It
there's
is. Yeah.
100% people who have it way worse than me, but that
Mhm.
doesn't mean I'm not having a hard time.
Yeah. So, in what ways do you think the idea that drowning is drowning might influence how you view your ability to cope with difficult situations, regardless of their size?
I think it helps me a little bit just to be like, it doesn't matter what I'm upset about, I'm upset.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and kind of because I do find there's a lot of small things that upset me. And sometimes it's just like that final straw, right? Or that final, like, all these things have been going wrong. Now this is also going wrong, and you have that misdirected upsetness towards something else that's not really the problem.
Yeah.
And like, I only saw that one a couple days ago, but I have been thinking about it because, like, I was thinking too, like, a lot of people have doctors mean to them all day, all the
Mhm.
time, and they just deal with it. I mean, like, Steve was there and he was just like, oh, this is annoying. um but it doesn't mean that like I was weak for being affected by it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And
And I think
so, oh,
no
sorry.
matter
Go ahead.
like, sorry, like, I think this is the swimmer. I was a competitive swimmer.
Oh, yes, you were telling me.
I hated that.
Oh, no.
But even being a good swimmer, like, you can still drown.
Yeah.
So like, even being good at my job, I can still have days maybe where I'm not the best at my job or I'm having a hard time, and it doesn't mean that as a rule I'm not a good nurse.
And before we wrap up today's session, I want to reflect on what we've discussed so far and what you'll take with you moving forward. So, the last part you shared with me, the concept of drowning is drowning, whether it be 2 feet versus 200 feet,
Yeah.
and how it resonated with you, that quote. And you've explored how this view can sometimes make you feel overwhelmed by all of the challenges, no matter their size.
Yeah.
You discussed how, or we discussed how, this mindset may contribute to the feeling of being stuck in difficult situations as
Yeah.
if there's no way out.
Yeah.
But going through everything, you've challenged this idea that all struggles, big or small, they're equally overwhelming.
Yeah.
You talked about how recognizing the difference between smaller and larger challenges, it can help you respond with more appropriate coping strategies.
Yeah.
You were saying when you had that panic attack, I forgot to kind of ask you about that, but what were your grounding techniques? What did it look like?
I was doing a lot of breathing, but I was remembering like things that we talked about, and I was like, man, I wish I had sour candy or something to
Oh,
like try and distract, or like other
yeah.
hard. It's different having a panic attack like in your home with your resources versus
Mhm.
like where I was. Like, I was in a place that was still really overstimulating. Like,
Mhm.
so I had a really hard time calming down. It took me a long time.
Yeah.
But I think it was really like using the, like, just even calling my aunt, and she was like,
Yeah.
what? I'm like, I don't know, just talk.
Yeah.
Like, just things that I knew would help comfort me, I think was helped. But I haven't
Yeah.
hyperventilated like that in a really long time. Like, I really felt like I couldn't breathe. Like, I get high levels of anxiety
Yeah.
often where I just feel like I'm being crushed. But like, that was worse than I've had in probably over a year. It was really bad.
Oh,
And then to
goodness.
have to come out of that and then be like, well, now you have to go right back into the situation that put you
Yeah.
here. It's really,
Yeah.
really hard.
And so we covered a lot today. How are you feeling as we come to the end of our session?
I do feel better talking about it. I still don't feel great.
Mhm.
But I'm not expecting myself to feel great either. I'm trying not to make myself feel like I can't feel my emotions.
Yeah. You're acknowledging them.
Mhm.
And these are the feelings that I'm feeling right now. And as you reflect, what might be one small takeaway from today's work?
I think I'm going to take away when we talked about like what it said, like if I switch that perspective, like what it said about me as a nurse versus her as a doctor, rather than like her opinion of me. I think that was a helpful conversation too, to kind of just step out of it and think of how the patients viewed it,
Yeah,
rather, because that their opinion means more to me.
it is the end of our session,
I
and
always keep you right till the last.
so would you like to schedule 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now? How's your,
I'm just gonna open my calendar.
yeah, of course.
Do you have anything next week?
Let's see. I do. Yeah.
Monday, Tuesday, or Friday?
Yeah, I
Thursday.
had
Any day but Wednesday.
any day but Wednesday. Yeah, I'm available either of those days that you just listed.
Let's do Tuesday, maybe.
Tuesday? Would you like it the same time?
Yeah, is that all right?
Yeah, that's perfect. I'll just put you in now.
I like
And
it. I can still sleep in, but it doesn't make
Yeah.
me feel like I can stay in bed all day.
Oh yes, I see.
It's like a good time because it's 10 for me, so it's a good time.
Yeah. Okay. So you're scheduled in for next.
Wonderful.
Wait, did you say Monday or Tuesday? Sorry.
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Oh, okay. Let me just
Monday's fine too, if you don't have the time Tuesday.
Tuesday the 26th. Okay, yeah, 26th now. Okay, perfect. You're all
Perfect.
set. I look forward to seeing you again next week.
Yes. Hopefully I have a less eventful week.
Yes, of course.
Or good events.
Yeah. Alrighty. Take care, okay? And I'll see
so
you
much.
Tuesday.
Wonderful. Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.